Okay, I've just come back from a workshop with parents. We've done a series with them, very similar to our Feel It workshop, where we're breaking down, helping them to identify sensory processing difficulties that their children might have, how we can identify characteristics, so what some of these things mean, covering ears, flickering fingers, rocking, chewing things, what they mean, and then how we can support those sensory needs so they're able to focus, concentrate and be involved in the environment that they're in. Today, one question was asked by pretty much all of the parents at some point throughout the workshop, and that question was, why do we need to do this, or what is the point in me doing this? And what they mean by this is, today the workshop was me giving them loads of ideas, creative things, resources, making things of how we can support sensory needs. So this was, why do we need to put supports in place? Why do we need to provide them with something to get that sensory stimulation, or to help them to reduce that sensory stimulation? So for someone with a sensory processing disorder, they're finding it difficult to organise all the sensations that their body are receiving. So it might be that they're really sensitive to sounds, and so we might recognise that by someone covering their ears. They might put their fingers in their ears, they might scream, they might pull you out of that environment. It can be an intense pain, so it can be physically painful. It's very distracting and therefore very difficult for their senses to integrate, to work together, so that then they can concentrate on what they're being asked to do. The auditory sound is over impacting their ability to concentrate on what the activity is. So we need to provide ways to support these sensory needs. So for seekers, people that are looking throughout their environment for sensations to help give them more stimulation, so children that go around tapping things and banging things, or chewing things, or loving reflective things, fiddling with things in their hand, loving sand, flickering things. These might be some characteristics for children that are seeking sensations. They're looking for more because their body is needing more stimulation. We need to support them to do that. So if you recognise these characteristics, that's amazing, because they're already identifying for themselves what they need. They're self-regulating, they're helping to give their bodies the sensation they need. And that characteristic, so the flickering of something or the covering the ears, is the communication to you of how you can support that. What that means, what sensory system that is. The point of us being able to provide other activities to support that sensory need is to give them other experiences of that stimulation. So if someone loves reflective things, we can look at mirrors, we can use torches, we can use lights, we can use shadows, so out in the sunshine making shadows. Anything that's highly contrasting is going to be great, and giving them that extra visual stimulation. The purpose for us doing this is so that then that child, once they're receiving enough stimulation from that sensory system, they're able to regulate themselves. Okay, so they're able to then focus on that task they're being asked to do, or their body is able to then organise those sensations better for them to be able to concentrate, to focus on you. If you're asking them to do something, if they have something in their hands that they're fiddling with, that's likely to help them to concentrate in any other sensory way. So even just listening to instructions. It's exactly the same for people that are avoiding sensation. So if someone's covering their ears, that auditory input is so overwhelming for them. They need a strategy, a support method in place to help them to be able to regulate themselves, but also the environment, so that then they can concentrate. Their senses can work together because their body is able to focus on what they're being asked to do. Now, the way I explain this is, if you imagine this imaginary line, we are able to regulate our sensory input throughout a day. We're at this midline. If someone's receiving too much information from a sensory system, so if they're hypersensitive, imagine they're above this line. They're doing something to bring themselves back down to that line. So I've just said about hypersensitivity to sound. If I'm hypersensitive to sound, I'm going to cover my ears. That's the action I'm doing to help bring myself back down to this line. When I'm at this line, I'm able to focus, I'm able to concentrate, I'm able to integrate my senses better to learn. If I'm seeking sensations, if I'm looking out for colours and lights and reflective surfaces or sounds, I'm underneath this line. So I'm seeking, I'm looking for things to help give me more stimulation to get up to that line. By me seeking that sensation, I'm then able to concentrate, learn, interact, focus on what I'm being asked to do, because I'm receiving enough sensations to integrate together. The reason why we do all this is for that reason. We want to help someone to regulate themselves, but to also be able to manage and cope within an environment as they get older. For some people, sensory processing disorder can be incredibly overwhelming. It can impact their everyday life, like I explain in the home life videos. Things like brushing our teeth. Most of us will take that for granted. It's very, very difficult. Proprioceptive sense, the awareness of where my body is, the tactile feeling in my mouth, the texture of the toothpaste, the flavour of the toothpaste, the visual, because I might be looking in front of the mirror, I might be in my bathroom where it's quite bright and reflective overhead. There's so many things that it could be overwhelming for me. That's going to impact me simply brushing my teeth. So for some people, we're going to identify seeking and avoiding characteristics, and if we can help to support them, we're able to then help them to regulate themselves, find ways of supporting themselves in other environments. So that is why we need to find ways to support them, and that's why it's important for us to understand how to identify sensory processing disorders and how to support those specific characteristics for your child. I hope that's clear. There's lots of videos on YouTube, like I tell everyone. There's lots of information on my website, or send me an email, hello@sensoryspectacle.co.uk. We are running so many workshops for parents at the moment. It's really, really important that parents understand. Parents are given the opportunity to have this training, but also parents have the opportunity to ask these questions. Because if I'm giving them the information of, this is what a sensory processing difficulty is, this is what that characteristic means, so flickering fingers, maybe someone's seeking visual input, parents want to know that. They want to understand what that characteristic is. So I'm here, ask me questions. If you've got a specific question about your child, send me an email, comment on something on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook,